Welcome to the Teach Joyfully podcast, where we talk about all things elementary teaching with some mom stuff thrown in. I'm Lisa Burns, a teacher success coach, veteran elementary teacher, and mom of 5. I'll be your host. Thanks for joining me. Like so many of you, I am teaching in the classroom, teaching online, and doing oh so very much more. And life is getting a little crazy. So I took a little time for some self-care. Yes, that meant that what I did was I let some tasks go, and I know how hard that is, but it's so essential. Taking care of ourselves is not negotiable. It's something that we absolutely have to do if we're going to survive this craziness this year. It just is. And I know how hard it is to leave some things undone or to walk away from some things that feel very urgent. But at some point, we have to remember that our own self-care is more urgent than all of those things. If we aren't okay, none of this is going to work. So I have a few takeaways and tips from all of my teaching experience. One of the things that I know is that parents want to know that their child is okay. More than anything else, most of the things that they email or call us about are motivated by some sort of anxiety or fear. Not always, but a lot of the time. They want to know their child's okay. And I get that. I've got 5 kids. I want to know my kids are okay too. When we approach parents from that perspective, it's so much easier to put on our compassion and remember that these are their babies and they've entrusted their babies to us and they're trusting us to do the very best for them. And we need to reassure them that in fact we are. And also that their child isn't falling behind. And if they are, we need to not only let them know that their child's falling behind, but give them very specific strategies and steps for how that will be addressed, for them to do and for us to do as well. They just need to know that there's a plan. Something else that I found out, teaching online and managing online learning takes even more organization than being in the classroom. It does. It's so much harder. Why? Well, because I don't physically have all those papers to grade right in front of me. I have to retrieve them all online and double check them that way. Yes, I know it's easy to use Google Forms and all kinds of self-grading apps, and that's great, except sometimes I really want to see my students' work. I want to see their thinking, and they have to write on an actual paper in order to tell me that. That's the only way, because I can evaluate what they're doing as I go around the classroom and see. It's not possible. And so I need to see what they're doing. So keeping track of that is one more layer. In addition, just keeping track of the assignments that have been assigned and everything that's been turned in, plus all the lessons that need to be recorded, the planning ahead, all of those things take so much more time. We have to be so organized in order to make sure that we have lessons for the next week. Honestly, I'm a pretty organized person, but this is a whole new level of organization. In addition, there's all the demands of technology on families and myself. So not only do I have to learn new technologies constantly, because quite frankly, I'm always trying to try new things and do new things and find different ways for students to learn, but also I need to help families figure out the technology on their end as well. And let's face it, we all know that computers, while they can be our best friend one day, they're going to be our mortal enemy the next. And it's the same for families. What worked one day is not working the next. And so helping them manage all of that while getting their students to do all their assignments and keep track of everything is really hard. I found it really helpful to have a place to put all the things that we're going to use throughout the year. Things like number lines and charts and graphs, things that we're going to use over and over again. Copies of paper-based 10 blocks or other manipulatives, things for language arts, anything that we're going to use over and over again, all kinds of templates and things like that. Those kinds of things are really helpful to have in one place for families. The other thing that's really helpful to have, and that we usually already have, is a list of links for families of places they can go with their child to help practice and to try things out. Those are helpful as well. Having a place where all of that is easily accessible to families so you can reference that and not have to constantly be linking a new number line because you're working on number lines. They can go back and just grab another if they've lost theirs. That is a time saver for us, but also it's so much easier for our students and families to be able to go and grab what they need and get on with the lesson instead of waiting for a return email from us with whatever it is that they're needing. So having that has been a lifesaver. Another thing, and I know I talk about this a lot, is checklists. They are my friend. Not only is having checklists and templates a time saver for me, it also helps me make sure that I am communicating with parents clearly and directly in a very quick amount of time. I can respond very quickly if I already have some things prepared. In addition, these kinds of things are helpful for families. Checklists to keep track of all of this stuff in this new format when everyone's been thrown up in the air and they're trying to manage, and quite frankly, most families are trying to manage more than one child's education in addition to working at home. Checklists are essential, and providing some basic checklists for families has been not only appreciated, but incredibly helpful for my families. So consider checklists for things that you have expectations for of your families, but also things that would help support them as families and as parents. So some of the things I have templates and checklists for. I have templates for parent emails, from misbehavior to events that are coming up to a regular weekly email. And I can do, sometimes years I do a weekly email that is what to expect for the coming week. And sometimes I do a weekly email at the end of the week, what we did, and this is what we learned and accomplished. However you do your weekly email, have a template for that. Then you can copy, paste, edit, and go. I also have things like family life checklists. What are family life checklists? Well, family life checklists are things like, here's a student's free time checklist. If mom and dad are working at home, then having a checklist for each child for things that they've agreed that they enjoy doing and they're willing to go and do when mom and dad are busy and they're done with their lessons, this is incredibly helpful. Then there's no argument, there's no trying to figure out what to do because I'm bored. It's go look at your checklist and choose something, and we all can move on. Having checklists and frameworks for meal times, everyone can agree in advance what's for breakfast and what's for lunch, so we're no longer standing in front of the fridge trying to figure out what to make for everybody. It really is so much easier. Also, it builds independence for students. If students can help do some of the parts of their breakfast or lunch and get those prepped and ready, not only does that build their independence, but it also helps mom and dad out and the day runs smoother for everyone. So those would be some samples of things I might have for family life checklists. Having a checklist for students for what their assignments are and when they need to be online is also helpful. If they can have a daily checklist or a weekly checklist that lists everything that they're expected to do, including when they're supposed to be online or what recorded lessons they need to watch, those kinds of things are incredibly helpful. It really does make life smoother for everyone, and it ensures that students know exactly what they need to do and will increase your turn-in rate and your show-up rate for your students. They'll be less confused and frustrated. Anything you can do to make that life a little bit easier will increase how often your students are really getting things done. And guess what? That also means there's less follow-up and parent emails for you. It's a win for everyone. A few last thoughts. Don't forget the fun. If you're only doing recorded lessons and you're not doing any live lessons online, you need to make sure that you're including some fun things for your students and make sure that you are actually on camera at least part of the time during the week. It's really hard for students to feel connected if they are never actually see you. And I know how hard it is to be on camera. Let me tell you, I'm a kind of a quiet person, and it can be a little hard sometimes to be on camera. It's one thing to be the voice behind the podcast. It's different to be live in front of the camera. The other thing I've learned from being online and working online with students for quite a long time now is exaggerating your body and your facial expressions. When you're on camera, you lose some of those things. You lose some of that in translation. There's subtleties that happen that aren't picked up on camera. If you can exaggerate that, it not only increases the connection, but will help student understanding. So having a little bit of exaggeration, and I know it's hard, that's not my personality, trust me, but it makes a huge difference. And honestly, the more you do it, the easier it gets. It really does. The last thing and the most important thing that I have to say is boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. You have to define your non-negotiables. What are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? What time are you quitting work? What time are you starting work? And how much work are you honestly willing to do on the weekend? You need to be realistic and you need to put yourself first. I know that's hard. As moms, as teachers, it's so difficult. Even as dads, it's so hard. We really love our children, we love our students, and we want what's best for them. But we have to remember that we can't help anyone else if we don't help ourselves first. So make sure that you have your boundaries firmly in place and that you are getting free time without any work every single week and at least a little time every single day. I know that it's hard because there's so much to do, but at some point you have to walk away and say that just isn't going to get done today. And as hard as that is, it's essential. You'll be 10 times more productive tomorrow if you can just take a break. We have to make this life sustainable. I talk to so many teachers who are ready to leave teaching simply because they are exhausted and overwhelmed. And if that's you, I get it. I do. I'm there with you. But you have to take a break. If you can do that, it will be sustainable. But if you can't take care of you, you're not going to make it. And I don't want that for you. So make sure you're taking care of you. If you don't take care of you, who else will? And that's my soapbox for today. So that's it, my teacher friends. We're out of time, and I'm definitely out of breath. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you liked today's episode, I'd love it if you'd go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and leave a review. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. Also, you can continue the conversation online with me in my Facebook group, the Teach Joyfully podcast community, where elementary teachers can connect, get help, and encouragement for all kinds of education and parenting topics. You can find the show notes and links to all the resources mentioned in today's episode on my website at www.hopeineducation.com/podcast. And yes, I do have some checklists for you, so go check it out. Remember, a happy teacher is a good teacher. Until next time, teach joyfully, and above all, take care of you.